Welcome back to SwitchUp, and we have our The Final Verdict series, where having completed a first-party Nintendo title, well, it's self-explanatory, isn't it? And a thanks to Azdin, our writer, for doing this one. After 3 decades and countless games, spin-offs, and even an animated series, Kirby returns to our console in this latest adventure, this time in full 3D. Packing even more tricks and upgradable copy abilities, is this truly the mouthful we've been hoping for, or more of a choking hazard? Well, let's find out. As a new day begins on Dreamland, Kirby goes out for a morning stroll before taking a ride around in his Warp Star. As he flies over the rolling green hills and luscious bodies of water, he suddenly stops when he comes across a large mass of dark storm clouds in the sky. Within these, a multitude of star-shaped vortexes open and begin to suck everything up. Shocked by the strange occurrence, Kirby attempts to flee on the Warp Star, flying over fleeing Waddle Dees, which are helplessly sucked into its vortexes. Bandana Waddle Dee is also caught up in it, and in this struggle, Kirby is knocked unconscious. Once he awakens, he finds himself washed ashore in a strange and mysterious land, one where nature and civilization have become one. And so this new adventure begins. And as Kirby is charged from behind a car by 3 assailants, he inhales them, as well as the car, stretching his mouth over it with the newfound ability and new addition, Mouthful Mode, which he's gained from those vortexes. Now, Kirby's newest 3-dimensional platformer will see him travelling through different stages in the hopes of rescuing as many Waddle Dees as possible. Although many were expecting gameplay more akin to Mario Odyssey with a truly open sandbox level design and full 3D camera controls, the structure and flow is more comparable to Mario 3D World. Levels require the player to travel through with an emphasis on collecting coins, copy abilities, gacha figures, and imprisoned Waddle Dees. Now, the main objectives in each stage will vary, but we'll see the player carrying out varying fun and obscure activities in order for them to locate those hidden Waddle Dees. Some of these will be a more overt and specific objective, whilst others are well hidden within the level. And it's through the rescuing of all 3 of these that you'll progress to the next stage. They'll return to the town and rebuild, unlock more facilities that will aid Kirby along the way, and they'll also help break the boss gate once you've reached it. Bosses are great fun to tackle, as well as offering a variety of different challenges. These also have their own objectives, meaning that you'll be encouraged to carry out these using a range of different abilities. Their demise will grant Kirby passage onto the next area. The maps themselves are quite varied, and they make each level feel fresh and unique, with that classic Kirby upbeat feeling. Controls are easy to grasp, with the D-pad allowing for players to get Kirby to pose, whilst he can attack or inhale with the B button and jump with A. His signature flying ability is here, but it's been reduced to a hover, which means he'll become tired after a short while and slowly descend. Although at first that might seem like a downgrade, the developers have clearly opted to nerf this ability in order to not only make gameplay slightly more challenging, it also facilitates the level design and forces the player to rethink certain maneuvers which might otherwise seem out of reach. This may well be the biggest change to the pink puffball, without considering the omission of some of his copy abilities in exchange for the new Mouthful Mode mechanic. The traffic cone, for example, somewhat replaces the stone ability in terms of ground pounding the cracks on the floor. Without spoilers, there are some equipable abilities, but it won't stop Kirby using his Mouthful Mode. He's as versatile as ever, and seeing him gobble up a car or a bulb is as charming as you'd expect, with more than a design reflective nod to Cappy from Mario. Previous installments were graced by a multitude of copy abilities that allowed Kirby to slice, break, and even speed through levels. This game sees the addition of the Ranger ability, which allows him to fire a gun, or the Drill one, which gives him the power to burrow underground. There are 12 in total, which can be evolved a number of times, making them more powerful. Unlocking these is achieved by finding the right blueprint and acquiring enough rare stones in order for the weapons shopsmith to evolve the copy ability. This mechanic really complements the flow and pacing compared to other titles, as it requires players to explore every level and grab as many coins and rare stones as possible. How exactly? Well, these are found in the hidden Treasure Road stages scattered across the world map. They are by far the most challenging sections of the game, without being too hard. Most require Kirby to don a specific ability in order to complete the timed trial, and doing so will earn him the prized stone. And there's a sometimes tricky timed trial element to these as well. Not one that's necessary, but for completionists it may be a nice addition. The Waddle Dee town is the main game hub area that will gradually see an upgrade and rebuilding take place as you progress through the game. Eventually Kirby will have a house and a fishing pond, as well as a pop-up restaurant where he can buy and work. There are so many mini games that have been organically added in, my favourite of these being the Colosseum, which acts as a boss rush mode, and many of these can be played with a second player via couch co-op. I played on Wild mode, which is the harder option, although anyone experienced enough at playing 3D platformers will already know that Kirby isn't a very challenging game, at least not until the last levels and some of the post-game. The multiple playthroughs will come from having to find those hidden items, especially when you realise that you require a specific ability in order to carry out a puzzle. To some this may seem like an aged mechanic, but for me it didn't deter from the experience, as experimentation and exploration is encouraged and the world facilitates it well. Getting from A to B in a stage is a simple affair, although the satisfying bulk of the experience is just that collection. Add in the couch co-op and the leisurely pace that you can enjoy the game, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Could it benefit from a harder difficulty mode? Yeah, probably. And will some people feel that the camera is ever so slightly restrictive? Maybe. Gameplay scores 18 out of 20. Controls are responsive and straightforward, allowing anyone with any skill to pick up and play, and they also score 18 out of 20. There are a number of beautifully detailed cutscenes here, with vivid colours radiating in every level. The lighting and shadow effects, as well as the vastness of some of these areas, really immerses the player into this derelict world full of abandoned shopping malls covered in ivy and deserts full of rusty ships. There's so much detail, no matter where you look. The animations are fluid and charming, although some of them did suffer from slight staggering when seen from afar, aka they reduce the frame rate in the distance. This is often seen to increase overall performance. The special effects, animation and execution though are beautifully rendered. The shimmering of the grass and the fog in the distance, particularly in those latter snowy levels, elevate this in a way that Nintendo only knows how. Performance is good overall in both docked and handheld modes, and I give the visuals and performance 18 out of 20. The classic Kirby tunes are back, some with some pleasant remixes, and you'll also find a lot of classic sound effects, such as the high-pitched bop sound when he lands or the jingle when he is defeated. The signature childlike voice, as well as some real voice acting that's actually decent, were welcomed, but I do feel like some of them might be a bit irritating after a while. Still, the music itself is fitting to the environment, which is absolutely to be expected for a Kirby game. Audio scores 17 out of 20. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is available from the eShop for £49.99 or your regional equivalent, and it requires a download of 6.2 gigs. It's a decently polished first-party title that can be enjoyed by everyone. Completing the game can take an average of around about 10 hours, and through the collection of some of the more tricky items, you'll really test even the most skilled players. If you're a fan that was somewhat disappointed with Star Allies, you need not worry. There's enough innovation and replay value to warrant the purchase. As you'd expect, Nintendo will price this as it does with all its first-party titles, although you may be able to find it cheaper physically online. I give value 18 out of 20. Veteran Kirby fans who have played every installment over the last 30 years are in for a treat, as are newcomers alike. Although apprehension is to be expected, especially seeing the amount of times HAL and Nintendo have experimented with the franchise, this is truly the right formula. There's enough here to please old and new fans, and the transition to 3D, although not as many expected, is something the franchise needed for the longest time. This has allowed developers to add more gameplay mechanics that feel rewarding and enjoyable whilst being accessible to all. Some may find it a bit too easy, but with most Kirby games, there's a decent difficulty spike towards the end, and as you'd hope, an epic culminating battle. Don't let this one float away, inhale it while you can. Thanks to Azdin, this one gets a SwitchUp score of 89%. Let him know in the comments what you thought of this. Certainly the final verdict I needed, Azdin. I think I'll have to get this one. And I know for a fact you may have completed this, what, twice now? But you're certainly halfway through your second playthrough. So much appreciated. A big thanks to our patrons. You support us each and every month. And if you want to save 10% on any games, use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg to buy your vouchers. Or if you're a physical collector, you can use our code SUP 2022 over at PlayAsia. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!